if we have attempted just one Julius Caesar extract question, you already know this line. Identify the figure of speech in the above lines and explain its effect. And here's what happens almost every time. Someone names a device, maybe underlines them, and then stops. That's half the marks. Sometimes 2 out of 3 gone on the easiest question of the whole paper. So today we are going through this properly. The actual devices from the actual play and the treasure trove of poetry and prose you are being tested on. So you stop leaving marks behind. So before starting off with anything, I want to talk about that why actually this matters. Because I don't want you memorizing this for no reason. Paper 2 Literature English is 80 marks. And nearly every extract-based question, be it Julius Caesar, a poetry, or a story, has at least one part built around spotting a device and explaining it. So this is not a side topic. That is marks distributed across the entire paper and worth doing properly once. So here's the 3-step answers examiners are actually rewarding. Name the device, quote the exact words, not the poet compares the two things, but actually write the phrase. Explain the effect in that context, not the dictionary definition. Instead explain what does it do right there. Reveal what a character really feels. Let me explain you by giving an example of Julius Caesar, where most of your marks are. Irony is the single most tested device in this play, so you must get comfortable with it. Let's look at Antony's funeral speech. He keeps repeating that Brutus is an honorable man. Sounds like praise, but every time he says it, he has just handed the crowd another reason to doubt it. Caesar wept for the poor, Caesar refused the crown 3 times, so why call him ambitious? That gap between what is said and what is actually meant is verbal irony. And it is the entire engine of the speech, turning the crowd without ever openly attacking Brutus. If a question hands you that line, please don't stop at irony. You can instead write that the repetition is ironic because the evidence Antony gives directly contradicts the compliment. And the contradiction is exactly how he flips public opinion. Right at the start of the same speech, I come to bury Caesar, not to praise him. Two opposite ideas, bury and praise, sitting side by side, that is antithesis. But why does it matter for your answer? Because Antony is deliberately lowering the expectations. Telling the crowd, I'm not here to flatter him, makes everything he says afterward land as more believable. That's the effect you want to name. Not just it shows contrast. Notice Antony does not say honorable men once. He keeps circling back to it after every new piece of evidence. That is repetition doing the real work. And if you are asked about its effect, don't write it emphasizes the point. Push further and you can actually state this answer as the repeated phrase gradually loses its sincere meaning and turns into something closer to mockery, and the audience feels the shift happening in the real time. Then there is Brutus right after the assassination. Ambition's debt is paid. He is using the image of debt to describe a murder. That is a metaphor doing a moral work. It reframes Caesar's murder as justice rather than violence. And if you are asked what this line reveals about Brutus, that's your answer. That he genuinely believes he has settled an account, not committed a crime. And don't ignore word choice as its own device. When Antony privately calls Lepidus barren-spirited fellow, that's not filler. Barren means empty, unproductive. And it tells you exactly how little respect Antony has for Brutus, or for someone he publicly treats as an equal. Any question on tone or characterization through language, this is your model move. Now let's move to the poetry part. In Haunted House, the poet says, a spirit world floats like an atmosphere around us. Direct comparison using like, that is a simile. And what is the effect? Something invisible and ghostly compared to an atmosphere feels weightless and everywhere at once, which is exactly the ambient mood the poem is building. Let's take another example from The Glove and the Lions. This poem leans on strong sound and visual imagery to stage the danger in the pit even before the glove is through. You are meant to almost hear the lines before you see the twist. If imagery comes up here, say whether it's visual or auditory, connected directly to the tension building toward that moment. A considerable speck is a great one for tracking a shift in the tone. The poet starts ready to dismiss a tiny speck on his page until he realizes it's alive, moving with a will of its own. That personification isn't the whole answer here. The real mark getter is noticing how the poet's attitude moves from irritation to something close to respect, and that shift is the point of the poem. Let me now give some examples from the prose part. The elevator is your reference point for building suspense. Small, ordinary details, a button, a floor number, get quietly loaded with dread before the ending lands. And if you are asked to bring out the horror, you simply have to trace which small detail seemed harmless at first and explain how the ending recontextualizes them. The last lesson is a classic symbolism exam. The final French class isn't just a lesson, it stands in for an entire community losing its language and identity under occupation. Whenever a question asks what something represents, your answer shape should be name the literal thing and then name the bigger idea it is carrying. Now let's move to those random devices that show up everywhere, even in the unseen extracts. These aren't tied to just one text, so they can turn up even in a poem you have genuinely never seen, and so it's better to know them cold. Hyperbole. It is the deliberate exaggeration. Oxymoron. Two contradicting words jammed together. Deafening silence could be a good example. Alliteration. Repeated consonant sounds at the start of nearby words. For example, silent C's. Assonance. Repeated vowel sound or repeated consonant sounds anywhere in the word. Apostrophe. Directly addressing someone absent, dead, or non-human as if they're listening. Same rule applies to every single one. Name it, quote it, then say what feeling or image it creates in that specific line. Skipping that third step is the single biggest reason marks get lost on this type of question. Let's quickly do a rapid fire before you go. Irony says one thing means another. Antithesis. Opposite ideas side by side. Metaphor. Direct comparison. No like, no as is involved in the sentence. Simile. Comparison using as or like. Personifications. Human qualities given to something non-human. Symbolism. One thing standing in for a bigger idea. Hyperbole. Exaggeration. Oxymoron. Contradiction in two words. That's the full toolkit. Antony's speech, poetry, short stories, all in one place. If you love this video, don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.